So, Stribog and the Kuna. Two guns, PCCs to be exact, nearly identical on paper. But we're gonna settle this once and for all. Who is the actual winner of this contest? So I know there's a lot of other videos of YouTubers reviewing the Kuna, comparing it and stuff like that. But there's something that I have that they do not. I can speak in an English accent. Now that being said, as far as my part in this, I don't have any bias or stake in this. I bought the Kuna with my own money, and I bought the Stribog with my own money. These are both my firearms. I have no stake either way, so if you think I'm biased, that might be more of a you problem. So a little bit of history on the Stribog. These have been around for a good amount of time. Earlier iterations who had a reciprocating charge handle, they had a lot of issues. Their mag feed lips would crack. They had some cycling problems. First gen, complete dumpster fire. Gen 2 was a direct blowback model with steel feed lips in the mags. The charge handle was not reciprocating. It started to be pretty good. I had good luck there. And then the new roller delay version that's been out for a couple years now is fantastic. And finally, this is the S, which is the short one, which is the most comparable to the Kuna. So that's kind of your background on your Stribog, some earlier issues. Now the Kuna, on the other hand, is the new kid on the block, but obviously a fair amount familiar because a lot of the things that were heavily inspired, whether anybody admits it or not, by the Stribog. Not a bad deal to have copies because as consumers, duplicates of the same product just means that competition for them and price shops for us. So it's probably a good thing, but it is funny when they market it as something that's brand new when it's quite familiar. So we'll start out with accuracy just for both. And while we're doing both is that the Stribog performs exactly as a PCC its size should. I've hit pop targets out to 150 yards with no problem. Kuna, pretty much the same story. They are both pretty much on par as far as accuracy is concerned. Nothing really to worry about there. Now recoil. Recoil is going to be one of the biggest topics you'll have with these. If you're wondering how my sling operation is working, I kind of have a ball and chain type setup with one sling, just because it was simpler than walking back and forth to the table. So let's start with the Stribog. We'll put 5 rounds through her, and you guys can see, I'm gonna shoot it left-handed just for the heck of it, why not? And you guys can just see how she recoils. We'll sling, safety on, switch to our Kuna. Now, something to note, I actually removed both muzzle devices today because the Kuna actually comes with a bit of like a compensator muzzle brake type deal, which I think is why a lot of people are saying that mine seems to have more recoil than others, because I removed it because it was kind of crappy. And I usually put a suppressor muzzle device on, but for today, these are just direct thread thread protectors. So the recoil on each of these should be perfectly comparable with less added outside factors. One outside factor you're going to get is that on the Kuna, I have my G36 mini rail on there. That's my nickname. It's actually from A3 Tactical. So maybe a little bit more weight on top, but it's not really going to matter. So with those two guns being shot, and you see what the recoil looks like, you can kind of take your own opinion on how it shoots just from this video. But my take is that the Stribog and the Kuna have very similar recoil. However, the Stribog's is more of a pop, and the Kuna has somewhat of a ba-dum, almost kind of like it fires and there's a split second where you're kind of waiting for it to come back down. I don't really know how to describe that, but it's a little strange. Maybe it has a more involved roller, so it's a little slower, but I feel like it's a ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop with each shot. Little odd, but really not a problem as far as recoil. You're not going to experience much of a difference from these as a new shooter. If you shoot a ton, you might notice it, but it's really not going to make an effect on your overall purchase with the recoil is on the Stribog or the Kuna. They're both comparable, and it's not really a game-changing decision. Now controls. So we'll start here with the Kuna. I will say the mag release, perfect. It's going to feel just like an AR-15. No problem there, works flawlessly. One thing is the mags do get a little bit hung up if you are level. You kind of have to have the gun tilted down or they kind of get stuck a little and you have to strip them out. Not a huge deal, might be able to fix it with a little bit of sandpaper or oil, who knows. But that's something to think about, but the mag release itself is good. Moving up to your bolt catch, that is fantastic. It's very AR-esque, it's perfectly ambidextrous. Pull back, the bottom portion locks your bolt, top portion you push it down. You can use your index finger on either hand if you're shooting left-handed, or you can use your palm like an AR if you have that muscle memory. Pretty much perfect, 10 for 10 on the bolt release bolt catch. Moving to the charge handle, it is nice that you actually have a folding one right from factory. It's not as quick in the dark when you're reaching for it because you kind of have to grab it and it's a little close to the muzzle, but the charge handle is in a really good spot. And as far as how it sticks out and everything, I would like it if they could get these where it's back here, kind of more like a SIG Spear or a Robinson Armament, something like that. Because if you're further back here, it will interfere with aiming lasers. But the Bog and the Kuna both have it in the same spot there. Charge handle's good. And then your safety selector, now that's where the Kuna loses some. As I've mentioned before in some other videos, the safety works great to turn it off, which is most important. But to get it back on, I absolutely cannot do it without shifting my hand. So what you have to do is you have to go to your index finger side and pop it there. So safety off with your thumb, on with your index finger. Not a huge deal, but something to keep in mind if you're really into keeping all your muscle memory the same is that you're gonna have to basically retrain that to use thumb for safety off, which is most important, index finger for safety on. Something to consider. The Stribog, you are much better off there. It's just without even shifting your hand, you can operate the safety all day. The factory Stribog safety, people did used to complain about because it's a little bit flat, which the Kuna's is not. It's very bumpy and grippy, but you can't reach it at all to turn it off. The Stribog is a little flat and a little bit slippery, but you can reach it no problem. And there is aftermarket support for the Stribog, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Moving to the Stribog's ergonomics, we already talked about the safety. The charge handle, this is actually a KDG one, it's aftermarket. The factory one is not bad. It's just straight and you just grab it and go, and it is ambidextrous and you can move everything over onto the other side. And the charge handle is pretty basic. The mag release is perfect, much like the Kuna and the AR. It's right there, you hit it, mags drop free. The Stribog does not have the issue of mags getting hung up at all. Never had that issue with mine. Maybe some of the new Global Ordnance mags are a little sticky, but I haven't had any issues to note there like I did with the Kuna. Now the slide release, bolt release, bolt catch, that's gonna be completely different. You actually have to push this bar up and then to release it, push it down. Ambidextrous on both sides, so that's not an issue there if you're a lefty, but it is different than what your muscle memory is gonna be. So as far as bolt release, bolt catch, I'd say the Kuna actually wins on that one. Your trigger. So your Stribog trigger is where we're gonna start, and this is gonna be very much like a mil-spec AR trigger, although it is a much shorter take-up and a much cleaner break, but it's gonna feel about a similar weight to a mil-spec AR trigger, but a touch better. I will say it is a little heavy, but it's not terrible. Now moving to the Kunas. The Kuna is the trigger I really don't like on this. It's actually lighter than the Stribog trigger, but it's a little more spongy. It kind of reminds me like of an old MP5, and it is really mushy. It's kind of got that Nerf. I'll go left hand so you guys can see a little better. Kind of got that Nerf aspect to it. So I'm not a huge fan of the Kuna's trigger. Now on that note, there's a little bit of aftermarket stuff to deal with that, where the Kuna's hasn't quite caught up. I'm sure it will, but it hasn't quite caught up yet, where the Stribog already has a ton of support, but that's really just time. I'm sure the Kuna's will catch up. Now reliability. We're actually gonna start on the Stribog on this one, just because I've had it for a much longer amount of time. Now I will say there's a little bit of an edge just because of how long it's been around, and it's had multiple generations to perfect things. But this particular Stribog that I'm holding has about 10,000 rounds through it, mostly subsonic 147 grain, dirt cheap reman, mostly suppressed, filthy, never clean. I never really clean it, don't really clean my mags or anything. So As far as reliability goes, I would say the Stribog is extremely good, but you do have to keep in mind that this is multiple generations, like 4 generations of mags and things like that. I also have a HB Industry short stroke buffer, which I think helps a little bit. That's more so for recoil, but I think reliability, it helps a little bit as well. Now the Kuna, I've actually had really good results with everything from here up reliability. Everything that happens in the most important part, or the primary function part, like your bolt and all that, runs absolutely perfect. It shoots really well. The only thing I've had issues with are these mags. Now, it's usually with a suppressor, and this is common knowledge at this point, but they get really dirty. And some people say, well, that's just a suppressor problem, or you gotta clean your mags. There's a lot of FUDs talking about this right now. But I will say that I have never had to clean a mag on any gun. And the Bog here has 10,000 rounds through it, and I've never had to clean my mags, and it's always suppressed. So there is a problem with these mags, that they're not very good at handling dirt and grime. I don't know what the issue is. I tried to tinker with it a little, but it hasn't helped much. I will say without the can, it doesn't happen as much, but the can just kind of puts an exclamation on the fact that when they get dirty, they're going to fail. The can just makes them get dirty quicker. The other issue is that when they're empty and you hit your mag release, if you are tilted even flat, a lot of times they get stuck. This has ammo in it, so it's not going to. If you're sitting even like this, like a high ready, you'll hit it and it'll just stick there and you gotta strip it. Makes your reloads a little bit slower. So that's some small issues. Those are easily fixable. Aftermarket lower with different mags, or if Springfield just comes out with some better mags, it'll be good, because everything from the lower up is pretty much perfect as far as reliability is concerned. Now, in one of my other videos with the Kuna, I did mention that I don't actually oil guns for testing. I don't recommend you do that. You should oil your guns and lube and everything. But for testing purposes, when I get a new gun, I leave it bone dry just to see what happens. And this one is maybe 1,000 rounds in, bone dry, and it hasn't had any issues yet. That's a pretty good sign so far. I think the 45 Stribog, I'm at like 2,000 or 3,000 rounds, and it has no issues being bone dry either. So reliability, I would say so far it's 10 for 10 on the Bog, now that they fixed their way in the past issues. Kuna, the upper half is 10 for 10. The lower half is like 6 out of 10. If you enjoy shooting firearms and stuff like this, you gotta remember one thing. We gotta support those who support us. So I've recently linked up with the Second Amendment Foundation, really cool group of guys over there. I like them personally, and I know that they are 100% on our side. So I'll have a link in the description where you can join Second Amendment Foundation to help support our gun rights, as well as that, any type of gear, optic, whatever you see in this video, my sidearm and all that stuff. I'll have links for everything in the description of this video, as well as my website for the email list so you don't miss gear deals and kind of some stuff I'm coming out with, my own products. So make sure you check that out. So modularity, to be completely honest, there's not much for the Kuna yet. I'm sure it's coming soon, and by the time you watch this, it might already exist. But in terms of modularity, we have no modularity. Little Despicable Me joke there. But so there's nothing for the Kuna worth talking about yet. Now the Bog, on the other hand, there's the Lingo lower receivers, which I usually use. I went back to the factory one just to make it more fair for this review. After you get the Lingo, you can get AR safeties, AR triggers. There's the HB Industries extended bolt release. There's HB Industries buffers, rail extensions, the Skur tactical cheek riser that goes in your PDW brace. There's basically a crap ton of different aftermarket support for the Bog so far. You can actually switch it to take Glock mags or Scorpion mags, depending where you get it from. Lingo's usually where I go, but A3 also makes a decent lower from what I hear. But aftermarket support, the Stribog's killing it, but that's really just because it's been out for a lot longer. I'm sure the Kuna will catch up in the near future. So stay tuned on that. Why that matters with the modularity is that when you can get all the AR stuff on your Stribog, you can do basically whatever you want. Currently, the Kuna does not take AR triggers or AR safeties, but it does take AR grips, which is something. So you can't do too much about it. Now the mag release and stuff and the bolt release, you don't even need to change, but the trigger, I wouldn't mind changing at all. I would definitely like to change the trigger and the safety. So that's a little bit of a downside. The Stribog definitely takes the cake there. Now the price. There's a strange misinformation or whatever about this, but I had several comments with people saying that you could buy 3 Kunas for the price of a Stribog. They might be thinking of a B&T, I don't know. But I checked while I was filming this video to make sure I was accurate with the current market. And Kunas without the brace, that's an important detail, and everything are around $870. The Stribog without the brace and everything is about $900. Now, a lot of times people think the Stribog is a lot more because it comes with this PDW brace, which is a really nice brace, which adds like $300 to it or something like that. But the Stribog and the Kuna are within $30 of each other, so price basically not a factor. I think an important thing to talk about is how they run suppressed, especially in light of suppressors potentially being deregulated. That'd be nice. And I will say they are both roller delayed and they both do really well suppressed. Being so very similar and somewhat copies of one another, shooting suppressed is absolutely perfect. You feel zero gas from either of them, even with full back pressure cans, just because there's not really any seams back by your face to hit you. Shooting suppressed, both of these guns are perfect, and honestly, if you don't shoot them suppressed, you're kind of missing out. 100% put a suppressor on whichever one of these you go with. So in conclusion, which one would you go with? Are you team Stribog or are you team Kuna? I know which one I would land on. Obviously, I have both of them, but if I had to pick, I know which one I would pick, but I don't want to push you either way. I want you to drop in the comment down below what team you're on and which one you would go with, because they're honestly both not bad picks, but they each have their pros and cons, some with more time in the market, some with future prospects in the market. Pretty cool stuff. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, hit that bell button, by the way. The common YouTube thing keeps deleting that, and then you guys won't actually get videos when they come out. So drop that bell button. I hope you like this video, and farewell.